Okay, what's up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of Morning Scone, presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. And of course, as I tell you, we have helped with roofs for some time now, and we would still love to be able to help you with that. Just give us a shout at 364-1007, 364-1007 for uh, our great roofing company that we've been telling you about for 3 years. For those that aren't, that ain't what I wanted. Uh, there it is. Sorry, I forgot to change the thumbnail on YouTube, so y'all had still the picture with me with hair. All right. Anyway, yes, we are brought to you by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. They're the best. Thanks for being there. And of course, if you have roof issues, give us a shout. 364-1007, 364-1007. All right, y'all. LSU football opens up spring practice today. Oddly, this is a little bit of a departure from the norm. Brian Kelly is having spring practice at like 7:30 in the morning. Um, let's see. Today was the first practice, but they did not have media availability today. Um, they do have availability. The first availability is Thursday at 7:55 a.m. And then Brian Kelly meets with the media after practice at 9:40 in the morning. So just for context, usually, like during the summer, whenever they get into fall camp, all beginning of August, whatever, usually our media availability is at like 9:30 or 10 in the morning. It's usually when they're out there to practice. They're getting out there early now, and I'm sure that's a big part of it, just to make sure that they're through with everything for guys to go to class. I would imagine because when you're in fall camp, remember class hasn't started yet. The fall semester hasn't started yet, and um, so I guess you have two options in spring. You either practice early in the morning or you practice in the afternoon. If your guys go to morning classes and then you practice in the afternoon. That's what if you remember, if you're an OG AFR fan, we would always have Jordy on to do our spring football practice reports, whatever little less would allow us to see. But we'd have Jordy on, and because Jordy would go to practice, because the availability of practice would be at like 4 o'clock while I was on air. So Jordy would go to practice, and then he'd call in at 5 or thereabouts, and we would do the practice report. So a little bit of a change up there. I'll tell you, that we did had Wilson Alexander on AFR on Monday, and he had to sit down with Brian Kelly, and we went through some of excuse me, some of the big storylines. And for me, what's so interesting is, Wilson and I talked for like 10 minutes. We talked about Harold Perkins moving positions. We talked about the lack of bodies on the defensive line. Kimo Makanaioli is moving from offensive line to defensive line just for numbers. We talked about the secondary and how basically everybody is healthy except for Zy Alexander. So we'll get our first look at J.K. Johnson. Ashton Stamps, who we learned after the season battled some injury during his freshman season. He's healthy. So Jair Brown, excuse me, the other transfer from Ohio State, he's here now. He'll be going through spring. We talked for like 10 minutes before we ever even got to Garrett Nussmeier, which is so interesting. And it's not to say that that's in any way like a knock on Garrett or whatever. It's just to say that maybe it's the opposite of that. I mean, you're losing your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. And despite the fact that you are losing your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback and two 1,000-yard receivers, we talked for like 10 minutes about all the different, storylines in spring. And we talked for like 10 minutes before we even got to replacing your Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, so again, I don't know if that's oh my gosh, they have an awful lot of questions, right? That you could talk for 10 minutes without getting to replacing the Heisman Trophy winner. Or is it because you already know who the answer is, right? I think it might be different if there were a quarterback competition this spring, for the starting job. Like if you didn't know who your guy was, like if you had brought in a transfer quarterback or, maybe you were leaning on a freshman or a first-time starter. And while Garrett's a first-time starter, he's been around so long, it's less of a question, I guess. So anyway, I'm excited to see how this next month thereabouts plays out. The spring game is the end of April. I think it's like April 13th. Not the end of April, excuse me. It's like the middle of April. I think it's like April 13th. It is. It's Saturday, April the 13th. So um, we're talking, let's see. Sorry. It's 5 weeks from Saturday. So, I mean, this is going to be a long spring ball. They sandwich it around. It's something smart that they do as well. They sandwich spring break in the middle of spring ball because those don't count as days. Because you have to have spring practice within a certain number of days. Well, if spring uh, break is happening at school, those don't count. So it's almost like you have uh, uh, more time to do like off field stuff because while you're doing spring practice, you can do as much off field stuff as you want, like classroom, all that sort of stuff. So it allows you to have more off field time with your team, right? Okay, let's say some good morning. Joe, know the drill. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, Facebook, like the Matt Moscona page, share the post. We appreciate y'all being there with us. Bubba Tatum, first out the chute. Good morning from Treasure Island. Catering breakfast for 200 with amazing scenery this morning. Beach cocktails to follow. Okay. Very good, Bubba. Abner Neal, good morning. Von Bluesman, good morning. Brett Gidry, good morning. Shout out Chris Blair. Big shoes to fill following Hawthorne. Lucky to have many people covering LSU. Bubba Smith, good morning. Wendell Norman, good morning. Trivia Carter, good morning. Hunter Broadhead, what's going on? Good morning. Scott Shirley, football. Yeah. So, by the way, there's no media availability today. So the first time that you're going to see, video and pictures coming from practice, and Brian Kelly's first meeting with the media is coming up on Thursday. So that'll be the first time that you actually get, some boots on the ground stuff from practice. But let me know what y'all want us to keep an eye on and what your biggest questions for spring are. James McKinney, good morning. Larry Garner, Jason H. Kicks of the day. Blazer, Lowe's. I love those, by the way. The two-tone blue. I don't know if you could tell, but they're kind of leathery too. I like them. They pop a lot. Matches the shirt. Jesse Brown, morning, Matt. Thoughts on the Saints possibly having to play Kirk Cousins twice a year since Atlanta has been his most likely landing spot? So, Jesse, I'm going to be interested, obviously, in what the Falcons do because they've been, rumored to be interested in they've been rumored to be interested in Justin Fields. And we're also hearing the Kirk Cousins stuff. So I'll see how that goes. I think, look, Kirk would be the best option Atlanta's had since Matt Ryan. Obviously, he's a better option than Desmond Ritter and Taylor Heineke and whatever combination of blah they have. I think I'd probably be more concerned if Atlanta got aggressive and drafted a quarterback for the same reason I was concerned about Carolina getting aggressive and getting Bryce Young last year. Now, you can laugh now with the benefit of hindsight, but it's only been 1 year. But I still respect more a team saying, we're going to go get our franchise guy who's going to be our quarterback for the next decade plus. Now, sometimes you go bust, and I don't know that we're calling Bryce Young a bust yet. I mean, let's remember that the coaching staff that drafted him was fired halfway through his rookie season. They also traded Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. And so, I mean, look, they got a lot of issues in Carolina. Anyway, I guess my point is if Kirk Cousins is there, I think that might be almost like the Saints with Derek Carr. It's a better short-term option than drafting a rookie and starting him right away. But I think you have a lower ceiling. Like the Falcons aren't winning a championship with Kirk Cousins, I guess is my point. Could Could the Falcons with Kirk Cousins in essence do what the Saints are trying to do with Derek Carr and win a bad division and make the playoffs? Yeah, sure. But I don't think that they're bringing in Kirk Cousins and winning a championship. Brad David, have men and women's basketball always combined records? I always thought they were considered separate. They have never combined records, Brad, and actually they don't combine records. They're not combining these records or this Caitlin Clark thing. I talked about it on AFR yesterday. It's the biggest annoyance because we have this conversation has sparked so much controversy and sort of this animus that we can't just solely appreciate how great Caitlin Clark is and has been for women's basketball because people are trying to compare her to Pete Maravich when the NCAA does not do that. Like the official NCAA rule records book has no joint record of anything, scoring, rebounding, coaches wins. Like they don't say Gino Auriemma is the winningest basketball coach in NCAA history. There's a men's record and a women's record. So it's very annoying because instead of just celebrating Caitlin Clark, you feel like you have to take up arms and engage in this debate, which is dumb. Now I'm not saying, by the way, Brad, that you're like I'm agreeing. I think we're probably agreeing on the same thing. I'm saying that having the debate feels so mindless, and it takes away the attention on a great accomplishment. But similarly, they're not the same thing. In the same vein, like Caitlin Clark and Pete Maravich are not the same thing. Like you can only measure records against a level playing field. And men's and women's basketball are fundamentally different. Like if you really wanted to combine them, then you'd have to say, well, what if Pete played against women or Caitlin Clark played against men? And they didn't. So they're not the same. Like she's amazing, he's amazing. Can't they both just be amazing at the thing that they do? That's my point with the whole Caitlin Clark Pete Maravich thing. Like, why are we trying to draw a comparison that doesn't exist? Anyway, Brian Wynn, good morning. Mojo, good morning from Tampa. What are the big stories to watch with spring starting today? Defensive line, obviously. I'm curious. Harold Perkins moving back inside with the new defensive staff. Can they maximize him? Does anybody emerge out of spring having won starting jobs in the secondary? Remember, Major Burns is back at safety. Sage Ryan is back. What role does he fill? You have the young safeties that played, Kylan Jackson played a bit, late in the season last year. The cornerback spot, Jair Brown is here. J.K. Johnson, who missed all of last year to injury, he's healthy. Ashton Stamps, Javen Toviano, like you got a lot of bodies back there, almost too many. So who does anybody come out of spring winning starting jobs? And then I'd say the same at receiver. I mean, you've got a lot of really talented guys. You brought in 2 transfers. And you're returning Kyron Lacey and Aaron Anderson and Shelton Sampson. You got a lot of talent over there who ultimately starts to emerge in that pecking order. Yeah, look, Christian said, I'm excited to see the running back room, how they schemed the running game, considering Jaden contributed close to 2,200 rush yards the past 2 seasons. Yeah, look, it's going to be different because you're not going to have a quarterback that's a runner. It's just Nussmeier isn't. I mean, if we look up Garrett's rushing stats, it's not that he's not athletic. It's just he doesn't run at all. Garrett rushing in his career. Let's see. Oh man, Drew's awake. Garrett has 7 rushing attempts in his career. And remember, sacks count as rushing attempts. So as a freshman, 5 for -46. As a sophomore, 1 for -13. That was a sack. And this year, 1 rush for 1 yard. So So my point is like he is not part of your running game at all. Jaden was a design part of your running game. So yes, that is a fundamental difference in how you're going to scheme. And keep in mind also that Christian, that you are really thin at running back this spring. You've got Caleb Jackson and Josh Williams as scholarship backs. That's it for a team that had 8 scholarship running backs this past year. Everybody transferred or is going pro. John Emery, Noah Kane, Trey Bradford, Armani Goodwin, but Caden Durham won't be here until the fall, and Trey Holly is suspended. So you have 2 scholarship running backs for spring as well. So I think you'll see a lot of walk-ons this spring carry the ball. Tommy Primo, good morning. Lowell Cormier, good morning. Thoughts of Will Wade coaching again at a bigger school next year? Yeah, he will absolutely be pursued. I think realistically, I think McNeese would love to get one more year out of him. I know they gave him the contract extension, but it's, in part you do that for your own protection. If you're McNeese, you give him that contract extension with a buyout, knowing that if somebody comes and hires him, they got to pay you. So it's sort of acting as a deterrent, but if there's a major school that wants him, they're going to hire him. I think it depends what jobs are open, and he will absolutely make his way back to major college basketball, especially in the NIL era. He's already proven he can recruit and win and get players, and fundraise and do all that sort of stuff. He just did it at a time and got caught when it wasn't allowed. So yes, I absolutely think Will Wade will be back coaching major college basketball but I think McNeese is hoping to get at least one more year out of him. I don't know if that's realistic though. Hey Dad, good morning. Glenn Laurie, good morning. What's the latest on Ocho? I mentioned this the other day. I did get an update, reached out to Ocho, and I asked him, hey man, you're just following up, see if you're still down to do this. And his reply was like bleep immediately. It was like bleep, yes, I'm in. He told me that he and his wife just built a new house and are moving in. So he's like, we'll make it happen though. So I'm gonna give him a few weeks and follow up again because he'll do it. I knew around the NFL postseason, Super Bowl and all was a bad time. So I was a little surprised. Like that was just me reaching out. So I was a little surprised when he was like, okay, we'll do it this week. I was like, oh, okay. So anyway, we'll make it happen. The Future 3, why don't we compare Harold Perkins and Deion Jones? They were almost the same height and weight, and Jones was a great player. He was arguably the best defensive player on a Super Bowl team as a rookie. So first of all, Deion Jones came to LSU and played special teams for 3 years before he finally cracked, through as a linebacker his senior year. Also, LSU was running more of a 4-3 then. That was 2015. That was the year before they brought in Aranda. If I'm not mistaken, was Debo's last year. And so different defenses. He played a different position, but even at 220 pounds, whatever Deion Jones was, well, one of the things that's important to note is, hang on, let me look up. Deion at LSU was listed at 6'1", 227. So Perkins they have him 6'1", 220, and I think 6'1" is generous. But even still, the bigger difference I would tell you is with Debo, he had played off-ball linebacker like his whole career and was an instinctive player. That's probably the biggest thing with Perkins is he's not an off-ball linebacker and hasn't been an off-ball linebacker. So when you're making calls and reading those keys instead of just being an athlete and getting upfield and told cover and run and blitz, and now all of a sudden you have to read a defense and keys and all this sort of stuff and be instinctive. The problem is like that only comes with time and with reps. And is it really worth coaching him up to get to that point when he's so dynamic at something else. Because I'll say this again, the problem with Perkins on the inside, what we saw in the Florida State game was, man, if you're hesitating, if you're waiting to react instead of being instinctive, then you've got a 300-pound SEC offensive lineman in your pads and a running back that runs 4.3 blazing by you. And that's not a recipe for success. So that's the size is a big part of it. Yes. There have been undersized backers that have played well. And Debo did it in a different defense than what Perkins is going to be playing in this year. But the bigger question is like, why when this guy has such a dynamic skill set doing something else, why are you negating that skill set to try to make him do something he's not inherently good at? So anyway, Joel Sanchez, GameCoin Game Changer, still a Q1 launch. That would have to be by the end of this month. Did we get our update? That's a good night. You reminded me. Did they post? Oh, they haven't posted. It must be this week. They're going to do it this week. I wonder if they're going to do this coming Monday. Yeah, you'll probably get your update this coming Monday. I thought it was going to be yesterday. It'll be this coming Monday. Crypto's getting fun, y'all. Again, Tim Gotro, good morning. Jacob Willis, good morning. Von Bluesman, I hope there's a quarterback that steps up, definitely established himself as the number 2 guy, ready to start at a moment's notice when called upon. Well, I mean, that's why they brought in AJ Swan. So, I mean, that he's going to be your number 2. Like, that's going to be settled. AJ Swan is your, the Vandy transfer he started more games than has Garrett Nussmeier. So, yeah, that's why you brought him here. So Nuss will be your 1. AJ Swan will be your 2. We'll see AJ Swan this spring. And then, you've got Ricky Collins and Colin Hurley is already on campus as well. So you'll have 4 scholarship quarterbacks there this spring. All right, smash the like button if you would. Subscribe up to the channel. If you're on Facebook, like the Matt Moscona page, share the post. LinkedIn, please connect, repost, all that sort of stuff. We appreciate you. Let me go a little quickly here. Got about 5 minutes left. Charles Bouquet, good morning, Matt Plavidal. Morning, Matt. Felt like I got 10 buckets of water dumped on me yesterday on my route. Need a day off today. Was it neither rain nor snow nor, whatever? What was the line for the post office? We appreciate you, Matt. Jason Trosclair, good morning. Kelly Gross, Cajun Country. If Lattimore is Lattimore a real trade candidate for the Saints? Somebody would give up assets for a DB who's had injury trouble. Well, keep in mind, he's had injury trouble the last 2 years, right? He's played in 17 games the last 2 years. But Lattimore is still in his physical prime and is still an elite level cornerback. So, yes, the question is, what assets would someone be willing to give up? And is it worth it if you're New Orleans? Hang on one second, Drew's awake. Let me go get him out of his bed. Hang on, I'll be right back. Are you fake sneezing? You just gonna fake sneeze? You want to come say hi, Dad, Joe? Nope. Here you go. Here you go. Okay. All right. So, let's see. Lattimore. So, I know I talked about the comp for Lattimore would be the Derwin James trade. And Miami sent a uh uh I'm sorry. Other Chargers. Uh Jalen Ramsey. When Miami traded Jalen Ramsey to LA, they traded him for a tight end Hunter Long and a third round pick. That was Jalen Ramsey. So if that was the going rate for Jalen Ramsey, it's hard to imagine the Saints getting much more than that for Lattimore. And I would pass. Third round pick and a fill in the blank player, I don't think is worth it for an elite level cornerback, especially when if you're the Saints, you would take a massive dead cap hit if you traded Lattimore, because I think he would still have money on the books through 2028 after his restructure. So I don't think it makes sense. Jeff McKiffin, good morning. Mark Allen, Major Burns at safety scares me. Major Burns is a good box safety. He's physical and can play the run. Major Burns is not great in coverage. So if you could play him in that nickel role that Greg Brooks played in 2022, I think he could be effective there. Sheldon Mark Fleming, morning, Matt. Why weren't you on 100.3? I don't know why, man. I'm sorry. We had our engineers working on it, but we should have been on. I don't know what happened with that yesterday. I'll certainly follow up today, but we should have been on yesterday, so I don't know why. And then when I'm on air, I'm obviously not engineering the thing to find out why, but we should have been on. It's not like anything's amiss. It just there was some technical issue yesterday. Denny Landry, good morning. Christian, is Josh Williams not participating in spring? I think T-Bob said he isn't. I know Josh Williams had an injury at the end of the regular season and toward the bowl game. I didn't hear that he wasn't participating in spring. As a matter of fact, Wilson Alexander yesterday told us the only player not participating is Zy Alexander. So I haven't heard confirmation that Josh Williams is out this spring. I have not heard that. Quentin Brakebill, Jeff Jones, Cliff Nelson, good morning. Deborah Cowart, James Avery, Rick Manuel, good morning. Episode 2222, Miles Scone, like a milestone, Miles Scone. It is episode 2222. So all twos, 2222 today. Thank y'all for being a part of it. David Bass, last one. Can we send Carr to Sean Payton now? He wants everyone else. Yeah. How about the Broncos eating $85 million in dead cap money on the rest of Russell Wilson's deal? Wow. Again, that's the argument against making trades like that and against, going for broke in the draft. It's because sometimes you bust and go broke. But the point that I'll make is I'd rather try than continue to knowingly exist in mediocrity. Take your shot. Shoot your shot. Take your swing. Anyway, okay, y'all. That's going to do it for us here on a Tuesday edition of Morning Scone. As always, presented by Brock, the Baton Rouge Orthopedic Clinic. If you need an orthopedist, you go to Brock. They're the best. Of course, the Brock After Hours Clinic is open nights and weekends as an alternative to the ER. And if you got roof issues, give us a shout. Remember, no web, phone only. Now 36410 for now, I should say. 3641007, 3641007, 3641007. Y'all have an awesome day. LSU Daily is live if you want to check the podcast, and we'll see you for AFR3. Peace.